The tinted window of the Maybach rolled down 3 inches, and the entire city of Los Angeles seemed to stop breathing. On the sidewalk, sitting in the dirt beside a hot dog cart, was a woman in a torn cardigan. Her gray hair was tangled. A small cardboard sign leaned against her knee. The sign said, in crooked handwriting, "I am blind. Anything helps. God bless you." She held a cracked tin cup in her pale fingers, and the man in the back seat of that Maybach, a man whose company had just been valued at $4.6 billion, felt every cell in his body go ice cold. Because the woman on the sidewalk was his mother. If stories like this shake something deep inside you, do me a small favor before we go any further. Tap subscribe, hit like, and leave a comment with the word "Mom." Because what you're about to hear is going to stay with you long after the video ends. Her name was Margaret, and she had not seen her son in 9 years. His name was Ethan Cole, 41 years old, founder and CEO of Cole Industries, self-made, photos in Forbes, photos on the cover of Bloomberg, photos in every airport newsstand in the country. He had been homeless at 16, crashing in truck stops, washing dishes, sleeping behind a Denny's. He had built his empire from nothing, with bleeding knuckles and a phone with no minutes left on it. And he had done it all to get away from the one person who had once called him worthless: his mother. Or at least, that is what Ethan had believed for 9 years. The car had been heading to a press lunch with a Japanese firm. His driver, Marcus, had taken the long way because of traffic on Wilshire. Ethan had been looking at his phone, smiling at a deal his lawyers had just closed, when Marcus slowed for a red light. That is when he saw her. Margaret, sitting in the dirt, holding a tin cup. The sign said she was blind. Ethan's hand trembled as it reached for the door handle. "Marcus, stop the car." "Boss, the press." "Stop the car, now." He stepped out of the Maybach in his $9,000 Brioni suit, and the sound of his Italian leather shoes on the pavement made Margaret lift her head. Her eyes were pale, milky, and followed nothing. "Sir, I am sorry to bother you," she said softly. "If you could spare anything at all, I haven't eaten since yesterday morning." Ethan's throat closed. He knelt in the dirt, his knees hitting the concrete, his suit soaking through. "Mom?" The word left his mouth before he could stop it. She tilted her head to the side, listening. "Michael, is that you? Oh, sweetheart. Michael, I told you not to come back here, baby." That woman you live with, she will steal from you. I know she will. She has those eyes, son. Ethan's skin went cold. She thought he was her other son. She thought he was Michael. She thought he was the brother who had died in a car accident when they were both 22. And she was blind. Ethan lifted her carefully. His mother weighed almost nothing, and carried her into his waiting car. The driver opened the back door in silence. "Where do you live, ma'am?" Marcus asked, using the soft voice he had learned working for bosses who had mothers of their own. "I don't live anywhere, honey. I sleep behind the church on 7th Street. They don't bother me. The pastor leaves coffee out for me on cold nights." Ethan's jaw tightened. The pastor left coffee. "Where is your son, ma'am? Your son, Michael." Michael was dead. He had been dead for 19 years, killed in a head-on collision on the 405, 2 miles from the hospital. Ethan had been in the passenger seat. He had crawled out with a broken collarbone and watched his brother take his last breath. Margaret smiled gently. "Oh, Michael visits when he can. He has a busy life. He is a good boy. Always was. Better than his brother." She paused. "Better than that Ethan." Ethan's chest cracked open from the inside. She did not remember him. She did not know she was sitting 3 feet from the billionaire son who had built a skyscraper in her honor in Singapore, who had quietly funded the scholarship that fed her church every Sunday, who had wired $2,000 a month for almost a decade to an address in Glendale, an address that, apparently, had never been hers. He had been paying the wrong person. He sat across from her at a rented private dining room at the Peninsula Hotel. She sipped soup with shaking hands. Her fingers had burn scars. Her cardigan smelled faintly of smoke. Ethan had not slept in 31 hours. The story she told him was the kind of story he had spent years paying top investigators to find. And now she was telling it to him between sips of soup, with a paper napkin pressed against her trembling lip, in the soft voice of a woman who had been worn down to almost nothing. 9 years ago, baby, she said, looking in his direction with those milky eyes that saw nothing. Your brother Ethan came back home for a few weeks. He had money by then. He had just sold some company or other. He didn't look like my little boy anymore. He looked like one of those men in the magazines. She coughed. He stayed in the downstairs bedroom. I didn't like it. He had people with him, strangers. They spoke on the telephone all night. Your daddy had been gone 2 years by then, and the house felt strange. Something was wrong with that boy. Ethan moved his chair closer to her. Mom, do you remember what happened after that? She set down her spoon, and for the first time, something sharp moved behind those blind eyes. I remember a woman came to the house. Pretty, red hair. Said she was a friend of yours from the company. She asked if Ethan needed help. She asked me to sign some papers. What kind of papers, Mom? She said they were about his business, about a trust he was setting up for me. She said I had to sign them so the government wouldn't take his money. Ethan's hands curled into fists under the table. Mom, what did she look like? Skinny girl, fast talker, wore those shiny earrings. She said her name was Nicole. She said she worked at Ethan's company. And there it was, Nicole Darrow, Ethan's former fiancée, the woman he had thrown out of his life 6 years ago when he had found her running a parallel shell company out of the 10th floor and siphoning his investors' money into an apartment in Monaco. He had warned her. He had locked her out. He had thought he had buried her. He had thought wrong. He drove his mother to Cedars-Sinai that night. The doctors were gentle and quiet. Margaret was exhausted. She slept in a real bed for the first time in 11 months. Ethan sat in the hallway and called his chief of security. His name was Cal Weaver, a former Marine with a face like a shovel. Cal, I need you to find someone for me. Quietly. No police, no headlines. Not yet. Who, boss? Nicole Darrow. I want to know where she has been living for the last 9 years. I want to know what she has been doing. And Cal, if she has been collecting a check from me, I want to know where every single dollar has gone. There was a pause on the line. And Cal, I want to know how my mother lost her sight. Cal didn't ask questions. Cal never asked questions. 3 days later, Cal came to the house in Bel Air at 6 in the morning. Ethan met him in the study, with the door shut, with 2 cups of black coffee and the curtains closed. Boss, Nicole has been living in a house on Mountain Drive, 12 minutes from here. Paid cash 9 years ago. Bought in cash from a shell entity she owns in Delaware. She has been receiving the monthly wire you set up, the one labeled Mom Beneficiary Trust, since the day you set it. Ethan's jaw clenched. The trust had been set up by his lawyers at his request. They had assumed back then that the address they had on file was a family member's address. And where did she send the money? Mostly to a bank in the Caymans. Some of it went into renovations on the Mountain Drive house. Some of it went into a horse ranch in Santa Ynez. And a chunk of it went to a place you are not going to like, boss. Tell me. A care facility in Bakersfield. Payments labeled maintenance, room and board. For a single patient. Patient name redacted. Boss, the facility's medical director is a man named Dr. Albert Penn. He used to work for one of Nicole's shell companies. Ethan set his coffee down so hard the cup cracked. Is my mother on that patient list, Cal? Her name isn't there, but the intake photo matches the woman in your living room right now. Ethan stared at the wall. Nicole hadn't just stolen his money. She had stolen his mother. And then she had thrown her away. And the blindness, Cal? Boss, the records I pulled show that Margaret was admitted to a hospital in Glendale 9 years ago with severe head trauma. Cause listed as domestic accident. The doctor who signed off was Dr. Penn. Yes, boss. The silence in that study could have cut glass. Ethan stood up. He walked to the window. Below, somewhere in the guest wing, his mother was lying in a clean bed, blind, with no memory of who had hurt her, or who had come to take care of her. I want her in front of me, on my terms, in public. It took Cal 4 weeks. He did it the way he did everything, quietly, thoroughly, and without leaving a single footprint. He traced Nicole's shell accounts. He traced her communications. He traced her real estate. He traced her new boyfriend, a gym trainer from Scottsdale who had no idea his girlfriend was once engaged to one of the wealthiest men in the country. And he waited for the right moment. The right moment came at the coal industry's annual shareholders gala. 600 guests, billion-dollar investors, the mayor, 3 senators, half of Hollywood. And in the center of the ballroom, on a wide stage under a chandelier the size of a small car, Ethan was going to present his new global charity initiative, a charity that, until that morning, had no name. He had been working on the foundation for 3 years. It was supposed to be a quiet gift, $100 million earmarked for victims of financial elder abuse, the kind of people his mother had almost become. He called Cal at noon. Bring her in, 8 o'clock. Tell her she has been invited as a special guest. Tell her I asked for her personally. Tell her she will be honored on stage. Boss, you sure about this? I have never been more sure about anything in my life. Nicole Darrow walked into the ballroom at 7:48 p.m. wearing a green sequin gown she had clearly bought for the occasion. Her red hair was up. Her nails were fresh. Her smile was the same smile she had worn 9 years ago when she had told Ethan she loved him while she was emptying accounts 2 floors below his office. She did not recognize the old woman sitting in a velvet chair near the service entrance. But Ethan did. His mother was dressed in a soft blue dress Ethan had bought her that morning. Margaret could not see the chandeliers. She could not see the cameras. But she could hear the music, and she could feel her son's hand on hers. Mom, I'm going to introduce you to some people tonight. I need you to trust me. Of course, baby. Are these Michael's friends? Ethan closed his eyes. He had spent the last week gently trying to reverse his mother's misidentification. The blindness he had learned from her neurologist had been worsened by years of untreated malnutrition. Her memory was fractured in a strange pattern. She could remember her dead son with perfect clarity, but her living son, the one who had visited her every week as a child, who had held her hand through her chemo, who had wept at her bedside in Glendale, his face had been erased from her mind by the same blow that had stolen her sight. It wasn't cruelty that had done this. It was 9 years of silent, deliberate abuse. Mom, I love you. No matter what happens tonight, I need you to know that. She squeezed his hand. You sound just like my Ethan. And for the first time, something flickered in those clouded eyes. Not recognition. A shadow A shape, maybe. "I had a boy named Ethan once," she whispered. "He used to bring me tea when I was sick." "You still have that boy, Mom." She smiled softly. And on the stage, Ethan's name was being called. He took the microphone. 600 people looked up at him. "9 years ago, my mother was stolen from me." A murmur ran through the room. "Not in the way you're thinking. Not kidnapped, not murdered. She was stolen by someone I once trusted, someone I once loved, someone who convinced my mother, a woman suffering from early dementia and a head injury, to sign documents she could not read, transferring guardianship of her life to a stranger. That stranger collected every dollar I sent home. That stranger placed my mother in a facility where she was medicated into blindness. That stranger walked into the party you were attending tonight." The room went silent. Nicole, 2 tables from the stage, froze mid-sip. "Margaret, stand up, please." And on the arm of a young nurse, Margaret Cole stood in her soft blue dress in front of 600 of the most powerful people in Los Angeles. "This is my mother. She is blind because of what was done to her. She cannot remember me because of what was done to her. And the woman who did this to her is in this room tonight." Nicole tried to stand. Her boyfriend held her arm. Ethan looked directly at her. "Nicole Darrow, you can run. You ran for 9 years. You can hide behind lawyers. You can hide behind your pretty dress. But you can never, ever, unsee your own reflection in my mother's eyes." He paused. "You took her money. You took her sight. You took her memory. But you cannot take the name she gave me. And you cannot take the boy who would burn the whole world down to bring her home." He lowered the microphone. The room did not applaud for a long time. Then a senator stood. Then a lawyer stood. Then the mayor stood. And then the entire ballroom rose slowly in something that looked less like an ovation and more like a verdict. Nicole was escorted out by Cal and 2 of his men before dessert was served. She would not be seen in Los Angeles again. 3 months later, on the terrace of the Coal Industries headquarters in Century City, Ethan sat beside his mother in a wheelchair the hospital had finally let her use. Her hands were folded in her lap. The sun was on her face. She could not see it, but she could feel it. "Baby," she said, "you read to me again?" "Always, Mom." He opened the book. "Where were we?" She smiled. "You were reading about the boy who went away and came home." "Yes, Mom, that is the one." He turned the page. And for the first time in 9 years, Margaret Cole recognized something. She didn't know it was her son's voice. She didn't know it was her son's hand holding hers. But she said, quietly, the way the blind say things that matter most, "You smell like my boy. You smell like home." Ethan closed his eyes, and the sun kept shining on them both, because some debts and some mothers are not paid back with money. They are paid back with patience, with presence, with showing up even when the woman in front of you no longer remembers your name. Ethan Cole had built an empire, but the only fortune that ever mattered to him was sitting in a chair in a soft blue dress on a rooftop in Century City, listening to her son read her a story. And for the first time in 9 years, he felt like he had finally come home. What would you do if the person you loved most in the world looked right through you?